Hello, everyone. Welcome to Leathertainment podcast. In this episode, we have Judy from the Handbag Spa in UK. They do a lot of leather restoration and maintenance work. So we're gonna get to learn that side of this field, which is a complete expertise in itself. I don't have any knowledge in that area, but I get a lot of questions. So I thought it would be great to bring in an expert like Judy to help you understand that side of the leather maintenance questions you might have in mind. So we're gonna start by getting to know Judy. Judy, welcome. Thanks for having the time for us here, sharing your knowledge and experience. Always the first question is how and when did you get into leather business? In your case, specifically restoring leather, since it's not that much of a common career to go into. It's usually interesting stories come out after this question.
It's a very niche market, and thank you for having me on your podcast. Um, I got into leather with my late husband was an upholsterer who specialised in leather upholstery, and eventually he went off to the States and became a troubleshooter for a warranty company in the States when furniture first started selling warranties with their items, and there really weren't the technicians around to repair the furniture that they were selling warranties on. So he got to know leather very, very in depth. And when he came back to the UK, we began the first independent training school in the UK for leather technicians to come and learn how to repair and restore furniture. And so the LTT Leather Care was the first company that we set up, and that's the training company. And he taught for 10 years. He died in 2000, and so I carried on, and I have carried on the training ever since. So we've been training for over 23 years now. But in 2012, we decided that we would start the Handbag Spa, which restores designer handbags. It was a very niche market. At that time, there was nobody else doing it in the UK. And it was very easy because people could ship their bags to us. And so it stopped me from having to transport furniture around, which is what we'd been doing before. So handbags were a lot easier. And so that developed from there. And then subsequently from that, I went on to start training courses in handbag restoration as well. So that's how the whole thing sort of developed.
Oh, that's very interesting way of evolving to this field. But as you said, it's very niche, and I think it's getting more and more popular. Designer handbags have been always popular and probably increasing in popularity recently. Um, and this is one of the most common questions I get, like, how do I maintain my designer bag? How do I clean? I have done this to my bag. How do I um, take it back to the original look? And I think it's a good shift from furniture to handbag. You know, from logistical standpoint, moving things around is much easier in the handbag space, as you said. Plus, they are much more intense in value, so people wanna, keep them in nice shape, and they want to recover if they did something wrong. So seems like a very good field to be in. So, what services do you guys offer? Like you said, there's a training part for sure. Let's say if I'm a person who wants to get into this, either for personal reasons or want to set up a business like yourselves in the US, do you offer training for me in that situation? And apart the training side, what specific services you do for the customers who wants their bags restored?
Okay, we'll cover the training side first. The training course that we do, it's a 4-day course, and we train delegates from all over the world. We've had delegates from Brazil, Australia, Canada, and as well as a lot of people in the UK and Europe. So people are welcome from anywhere in the world, including yourself.
I'll try
But
my best to be there.
But we don't offer an online course, which is something that a lot of people are asking me to do, mainly because I find that it's a very hands-on industry, and the skills that you need to learn really can't be taught over the internet. So we have a training room and a workshop, and we provide training courses to delegates that will travel to be with us. It's a fun course. Everybody really enjoys it. We have a good time, and they learn an awful lot. I feel drained by the end of a course because they take so much information out of me.
I'm
um,
sure it sounds like a great service in a very like specialized knowledge area. And are these like on a regular basis that people can sign up for, or is it one person at a time? How do you guys organize it?
we work in small groups of up to 6 people, and we run them. Well, we usually have a training course of one sort or another every month during the year. But we do just a leather course rather than a handbag course as well, which is a slightly shorter course, and that's really for furniture, car interiors, super yacht interiors, plane interiors, anywhere that there's leather. So that's just a basic leather course. But the handbag one is a bit more specific. Well, it's a lot more specific because the finishes on handbags are so very different to your regular furniture and car interiors. So there's a
Absolutely.
lot more in-depth knowledge to learn on handbags. And as you say,
Okay,
they're
that's
of
awesome.
very high value as well.
Most of them are.
So as far as services go that we offer for restoration, we offer cleaning and leather repairs and handbag restoration. As much as we can do, we get an awful lot that think that we can perform complete miracles, but we can't. But we do a full restoration service, or we can change the colour of a bag. If you want it to match a pair of shoes, or if you wanted it dyed a different colour because the season's changed. So any of those sort of services. So really anything to do with handbags we can sort of resolve for you.
Wow, that's impressive. Like I'm very curious how a handbag color can be changed without taking it apart and all that after, on a finished leather. So I might ask
Oh, yes.
further on that a little later.
Okay.
So, um, what are the most common questions and issues you come across from your consumer side of things? People reach out to restore or repair their bags. What is the a few things that you keep hearing every day?
Ink removal, dye transfer removal, um, scuffs, corner repairs, all the general things that happen to handbags, but ink and dye transfer are probably two of the most common ones.
And are they repairable,
Yes.
recoverable in most cases, or in some cases
In most
it's not?
cases, I have seen dye transfer where it is just so bad, but then there is the alternative to dye the bag a darker colour, so we can get round that one that way.
Oh, I see.
Um, but generally speaking, most things can be fixed.
I see. Oh, that's great. And we can get into more details of those as well. I get a lot of those questions, and I'm like, I really have no idea how to do that, especially given I don't know what kind of bag you have, what kind of finish you have over an email. Definitely I don't want to provide any answer at all. But I'm gonna start referring people to you from now on. It's like maybe you want to reach out to Judy, and she might help you.
Brilliant.
So let's start talking about the leather finish types a little bit since it's relevant, especially in the handbag spaces, um, to how to restore or clean or maybe change the color of it. In general, we see aniline, semi-aniline, or pigment finishes, or much less finishes like pull-ups, distress, or crazy horse kind of stuff. Not really in the high fashion luxury space, but in some uh, other craftsman artisan space, you might see these kind of pull-ups and distress finishes. Um, how do they differ in your work? Like how you treat, recover, clean these things, given those general areas of finish types? If you want to talk about pros and cons of each from that maintenance and usage standpoint, that will help people understand the finish is a little bit a little bit better than I provide context for in my videos.
Um, yeah, I mean, working down from the top, the full grain, full aniline leathers, which you love, I know, are obviously the
Absolutely.
most pure leather that there is. These have just been dyed and dried, and there is really no other surface finish on them at all. It makes it more difficult from a repair point of view, because normally what we're repairing on handbag damage is the finish on the leather, not the leather itself, whereas damage on an aniline leather is the leather itself, and that is very difficult to repair to a very high standard, because you can't use anything to cover the repair that you've done. And obviously from a staining point of view, the more natural the leather and the more absorbent it is, the harder it is to extract stains and everyday wear from that leather, including ink and dye transfer and things like that. The key to keeping aniline leather good is to look after it and to clean and protect it. But we'll come on to that afterwards when we
Yeah.
talk about some care products. Um,
Yeah.
Semi-aniline, I tend to call a semi-aniline a micropigment, because from a technical point of view, it's a little bit more descriptive. And I know a bit more what my technicians are talking about if they talk about a micropigment. But a semi-aniline has a very, very light coating on the surface, usually still a full grain leather, that has a micro coating on the surface, which makes it infinitely more usable and more protected from damage point of view. It's my favourite leather is micropigment, because it's so versatile from a repair or a dyeing or a recoating. It's the best as far as I am concerned from our industry. So I like micropigment semi-aniline very, very much. Pigmented leathers, there's a vast array of different finishes that they use on a pigmented leather, but they repair very well from our point of view, because we can use paints and pigments to hide any damage. We can usually remove stains quite easily, and if they can't be removed fully, then we can paint over them. So it has that, more possibilities from that point of view. So obviously, the heavier the coating, it's very true in the restoration industry that the better quality the leather, the easier they are to restore. So when you get down
Okay.
to your lower grade leathers that have a much heavier coating on the surface, they become much more difficult to
Oh,
restore
really?
yeah.
From a
Yeah, so
restoration standpoint, but probably it could be harder to ruin if finish is a lot thicker, maybe. I am not 100% sure, but
it depends how much the finish is and what they've done. I mean, we could go down the line then to a patent leather, which is very, very heavily finished, obviously, because it has
right,
the plastic style coating on the surface. Those are not repairable at all.
right.
So we go from sort of one extreme to the other with the amount of finish that's on there.
I see. So the micropigment semi-aniline is kind of best of both worlds.
Love that. Yeah.
It's you still enjoy the grain a bit, but
Yeah.
it's protected, and on the repair restoration side, it's also the easiest to work with. I didn't know that, so it definitely makes sense. And I see more of those leathers in luxury, which in luxury space, they don't usually use the aniline leathers because of the
No.
high variability. But I love when I see those semi-aniline or micro finishes. That's the best of both worlds, and I saw it in Loewe. I think Hermes uses it in a
Yeah.
lot of articles.
Yes.
So I love it. When I start to see like too much, like little bit over finishes, I see a lot in probably LV in some of the articles, and I'm like, okay, this is a little too much, too much hiding. But glad to hear that aspect that I wasn't aware from a repair standpoint.
Mm.
And people ask me how to maintain leather. So I usually get these questions either on a social media message comment or an email format. So I don't even know what are we talking about in terms of like bag finish. So I always refrain from giving a general advice since it really depends on what kind of leather and bag it is. What would be your answer to such a general question, and if you were to approach it like me, and what would you like to know further to give them a little bit more directions in maybe in general terms of different types of finishes?
Well, the first thing I'd like to say is that um, the one thing that, from a care point of view, that we can guarantee, and there's not a lot that we can guarantee in the leather world because it's such a flexible world. If you look after your leather and clean and protect it on a regular basis, it is guaranteed to prolong the life of the leather. So, taking care of your handbag is vitally important. And what we are trying to do most of the time is to protect those surface coatings because it's those that get damaged. In the aniline handbags, we're trying to prevent it from staining. So you don't want the stains, you don't want things to be absorbed. So using a protector on the surface on an aniline leather, this will protect it from staining. If you use it on a semi-aniline or a pigment coated leather, it's going to protect the coatings that are on there. And cleaning regularly is also part of it because it's dirt that damages leather. So on an aniline, it will start to damage the leather itself. On the other finished leathers, it will start to damage the coatings. So if you clean and protect those two steps on a regular basis, you will prolong the life of your handbag. So it's going to last longer, it's going to look nicer for longer. And I think this is something that people either don't understand or don't think it's necessary when they first buy a handbag. But if they do it right from the beginning, then that's going to stand them in good stead. And prevent having repairs done, which does me out of a
Right.
job, but but it is important.
I see. And in that case, what do you use for maintenance, like that protection that's on aniline or a little bit more protective finishes? What people can apply to increase that protection against staining or protecting the protective layer in terms of
Um,
maintenance standpoint?
it should be done on a regular basis, so you can clean and protect. The protector doesn't build up on the surface, so the protector can be used on a regular basis. So depending on what your handbag, what colour it is, or what type of leather it is, that sort of dictates how often you do it. So you should be cleaning your handbag on a regular basis. Obviously, if you're using something every day, then you should be cleaning it probably, a wipe down at the end of the week, or before you put it, back away again when you're putting it away between the winter and the summer, or at times like that. But protecting and maintaining it with a cleaner is all important.
So cleaning wise, how do you clean it? Do you just wipe it with a dry cloth or you use extra materials or just moist? fabrics? What do you recommend in
We
general?
have we have a product called Sensitive Cleanse, and if you use that in conjunction with Dermoprotect, which is our protector, it's just a wipe over with a cloth with some product on it, and that just takes anything off that's sitting on the surface, because the protector will help hold things on the surface. So this is a good way of stopping dye transfer as well. Because if you've put the protector on, the dye transfer will sit on the protector and not the leather itself. So when you clean it, you will clean the dye away from the surface and not allow it to soak in to the bag. Because once it's soaked
I
into
see.
the bag, then it becomes a repair process.
Right. So the ideal scenario, someone gets a bag and apply one of those protectors
Hmm.
first to increase
Yeah.
the protection so things got on the bag stays on the surface, and then regularly keep using that cleaning material, and
Yes.
then maintain it clean. And time to time you reapply your protection agent maybe, right?
Exactly. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
And
Ideally.
you can safely recommend this in aniline leathers or any other leathers as well, or there are some cases it might react to the finish or color, so you always
No,
test it somewhere.
the protectors don't change the colour even on Vachetta and pure aniline. Um, it would be so minimal that you wouldn't notice when once you'd applied
Mhm.
it. It obviously does soak into those more, but it doesn't change the look or the feel. So they're safe to use on all the Vachettas and the pure aniline leathers as well.
Okay, that's great to know. I would definitely recommend. Otherwise, I always say like just don't apply because in from where I'm coming from, like I do the leather in the tannery, we apply the finishes. I know how complex is the finishes and how much variant can be in it that we don't know by looking at the leather. So whatever you apply is basically just changing the finish somehow, like you interact with the finish, and it's hard to guess. So that's a good perspective since you've been doing this on already finished leathers. You don't have the fears that I have because I don't
No,
have your experience.
we've been developing and modernizing and changing products over the last 20 years to really work with the leathers that are out there. And these are products that have been so well tested that we have no problem with with them at all in that respect.
But where people can your products, like where is it available if I want to get it?
They're available on the Handbag Spa website.
Hmm.
All our care products are on there as well. And
Is it
we have a
handbagspa.com?
thehandbagspa.com.
Okay,
Um,
cool.
we've also got a really good product on there which we developed a long time ago. There was a big spread over all the news, especially in the UK. I don't know whether it hit the States or not, about how healthy is your handbag, because they found that handbags were carrying a lot of germs and bacteria, and they were tested and they found that they actually carried more bacteria than a toilet seat.
Ooh,
And
doesn't
this
sound
was
good.
this was actually tested and proved. And so we developed a product which was actually fully tested by the hygiene people to kill bacteria on a handbag. And it's called Antibacterial Cleanse, and it's safe to use on all leathers and fabrics. So you can just spray it onto your handbag, and you know that it's healthy. We sold a lot during lockdown.
Oh, I'm sure. I'm sure. That sounds like the product of that time. So I'll check it out too. I didn't know that. And time to time we get these LBI, Leather Bureau of Investigation submissions from the audience. They send me a bag that was used 30 years, and I start cutting it up. So knowing that
Oh yeah,
a bag could be dirtier than your toilet doesn't make me very comfortable with this program anymore. So
I hadn't thought of that.
maybe I should get your spray
I
and
think
then
you
treat
should.
it before I.
I'll send you some. I'll send you some.
Okay, thank you. Awesome. So You see, I learn a lot from these interviews, and I love it so much. Um, so what are the most common but recoverable stains that people ruin their leather goods, and what are not recoverable in, in the common things you see around your customers that they ruin their bags with?
I, I mean, as I've mentioned before, I think ink and dye transfer are two of the most common ones that we see. And as I say, to a certain extent, these are preventable because if you correctly protected your handbag, then hopefully that wouldn't happen. And those are generally speaking very, very fixable. Um, some of I think on one of your previous videos you were looking at the interiors of the Chanel handbags with the lining that wasn't actually leather. Once
Yeah.
those start to deteriorate, that cannot be fixed. So that would mean a new lining, or well, it would really, because we can strip the linings out and leave the fabric below, which actually makes it usable, but it's obviously not the same handbag because it hasn't got the interior lining. But then it's not the same handbag if you change the lining either. So it's,
Absolutely.
one of those things. I think people like to think that a repair is going to put their handbag back to looking absolutely brand new, and it's a repair at the end of the day, and we can only work with what we have to work with. So in some circumstances, bags are so badly deteriorated because they haven't been looked after that it's almost
Yes.
impossible.
Especially if they use a PU material like that inside. I was very surprised actually. It
Mm,
looked like leather, and it's probably a 30-year-old bag it was when I was looking at
yeah,
it. And eventually those PUs crack up, they don't age well. Leather ages gracefully. Even if it starts breaking down, it looks better. It doesn't look like trash.
yeah.
And somehow repairable, but PUs are not. So that's one of the biggest disadvantages of PU. I'm not against, like, if you want to use PU, just go ahead and use it. It's cheaper. It looks probably new for a really long time, easy to clean and all. But once it starts to break down, it's not repairable. It's going to go to a landfill. It's not biodegradable. Will become a microplastic issue for the environment and all that. So anybody who's trying to greenwash this PU leather with the vegan label, I think they need to think in these long-term impacts as well. And just 30 years down the road, your cherished handbag doesn't look good and there's no way to repair. Just wanted to add there as a little detail on the PUs because um, unfortunately, so many brands use that PU linings. Like it's a leather bag, fully beautiful leather bag. Inside, it looks like leather, and I am almost 100% sure most of the people assume it's also leather because it looks like leather on a leather handbag. It was expensive coming
Mm,
from a big brand. They automatically make the assumption, but unfortunately, it's not. That's why I am an advocate of leather companies not using PU in in any of their leather products because of that assumption and confusion. And if they do, I think clearly label it like just, hey, this is PU. Educate your salespeople because I've seen so many times they keep insisting that inside is leather as well. To me, I'm like, no, it's not. But and then we figure it out once we cut it up. So if you're a leather company, I think you stick with leather or use fabric that doesn't look like leather, so people are not
mm.
confused. Just wanted to put it in there. And in terms of fabric linings versus leather linings, do you have a preference in maintenance standpoint?
Most of the fabric linings clean really well. I mean, leather linings, obviously, we can repair in the same way as we would the outside if anything happened to those in particular. But I don't, I think either, as you say, I think if they're honest about what it is, because there's also the Alcantara, which looks like suede, so people think that it's a suede lining, and it's not, it's a fabric. Um, and I think there is an awful lot of confusion out there for the general public. I don't think they know or understand sometimes what they are buying, and I think the terminology. I think there's just so much out there which is very, very confusing for the general public, which
Yeah,
is
it's deceptive. I think purposefully they call it micro suede.
I
You know,
know.
if you use suede, you know, to define a fabric, you automatically want people to think it's leather.
Yeah.
And you know, it's not only general public, their salespeople think this. This happened to me in the Coach. I was buying the Coach bag. I know it's a micro suede fabric lining inside, and the salesperson says, "No, it's suede." I'm like, "Are you sure?" Three times I asked her. It's like, "No, no, it's 100%. It's suede. It's leather." Like, okay, I'm gonna use this in the video then because I know it's not. So, and it wasn't.
No, I know it's um, a common problem which we come across quite a lot,
Yeah.
because there is a lot of people use the terminology for something nova suede or micro suede or whatever they use, and people just hear the suede bit, so they
Yep.
immediately think it is leather.
Exactly. So as now we see a rise on the pre-loved luxury, the second-hand market for these luxury handbags, I foresee a demand for restoration work going up. It's my assumption. Am I right? Do you see an increase in the demand for your services?
Absolutely, it's a real growing market at the moment, which is one of the reasons that we put the handbag restoration course together, because there are so many millions of handbags out there. There's plenty for everybody to be repairing. But yes, it really has, since lockdown. Actually, I think in lockdown, I think a lot of people changed their sort of tack on things, and decided to either get into restoration in a big way, or to start looking after things a bit better. And I think the whole attitude changed to restoring and recycling, instead of buying new. And especially now with the cost of living crisis and everything else, I think everybody's looking for either ways to make a bit more money or ways to make things last longer. So the demand is huge at the moment.
That's great. That's great to hear. And it could be an opportunity for some people who are looking for, I don't know, a side business or a hobby or a full-time business maybe as an idea. So if I was a person in that scenario, where would I start? I know you guys offer this course, we just talked about it. Where do I start building my knowledge, and what can business may look like if I were to set it up?
We get a lot of people for very different reasons coming on the course. We have a lot of people that are just wanting to do it for a hobby, and we get people that are actually doing it because they find it very therapeutic. I've had quite a few people that just come because they love it as a therapy, but also people who are interested in getting into opening a business like ours, and restoring handbags, for a living. It is advisable to look at a course, particularly to learn about the different types of leather and finishes, because that's going to be crucial to your work as a restorer. So there are not many courses. I think there's me and a company in Thailand, and I think that's about it at the moment. So I would really advise people, rather than just sort of trying to do it from YouTube videos, to actually get a very good understanding of leather and how it is made, and what the finishes are, which is what the first part of our course goes into in great detail, because that gives you a really good understanding of the material that you're handling. You can come, very unstuck very quickly, I think, if you don't do some sort of training or research into these things.
Right, right. Definitely, you need to learn, especially leather is not a common subject that, normal people on the street knows about. You
No.
got to do a like, very quick learning about the leather types and how you can clean them once you identify it. This sounds really interesting, your course actually. I'm getting into this content, travel content as well, chasing leather around the world. That's what I've been doing all my life. Like pretty much all my travels was about leather. And it still is like that. I was in Pakistan last week. I'm gonna go to
Right,
Mexico a couple of weeks later and Europe again. So next time in I'm in UK, I wanna really consider if we can coincide
oh,
with the
that's good.
course that I learned this, because I think I can benefit a lot from your knowledge there and maybe help answer some of the questions we keep getting a lot here after the videos.
But bearing in mind that restoration of a handbag can um, be quite expensive, so
Hmm.
you soon get your money back from what you learn
Right.
on the course. So it's covered very quickly in the handbags that you restore. So it might seem a lot, but you soon earn that back.
I believe so. These are like expensive pieces people care about, and there's also the memory, sentimental
Mhm.
value too. They've
Yes.
been using the bag for 10 years. Maybe it was a gift from someone special, so they really want to care, and they know it's going to cost money, and
Yeah.
most of them are, you know, eligible to pay that cost too. So I think it could be a very lucrative business if someone is looking for um,
Yes.
an idea for a business. So definitely very interesting content, travel concept for me. So I'm gonna start thinking if I can fit it in the calendar somehow.
Okay.
Um, so what do you think about this super brands? We inspect on the channel, Chanel, LVs, Hermes, and there's about 20 of them. I think there's not that many, but it's still quite out there with their big price tags, and they're all around the place. Global, huge brands, obviously, very successful. What's your perception of them in the major ones? Do you have a preferred one? If so, why?
Um, People buy handbags for so many different reasons. And obviously, there is a market for the very high end handbags where people will buy into a brand and expect a very luxury product, which I still think they get. I know, looking at the breakdown of what the actual leather costs makes it look as if these handbags are probably not worth what they're paying, but they are to the person that's buying it. So we have to look at the whole handbag industry as being you set your sights at what level you feel comfortable with paying for a handbag, and so some people will feel that you know £100, £200 is a lot to spend on a handbag, whereas the higher end handbags will still have their market. I think that it will always be there.
Absolutely.
So I don't, I don't knock those brands because they've worked hard over however many decades to produce the goods that they do, which are obviously very very high quality. Um,
Mhm.
I have a favourite. I mean, I like Bottega Veneta. I, I don't know. I don't really know why. I mean, they're micropigments, so they're my favourite leather. I think they look nice and they have a certain style about them. Um, but I like lots of different makes. We come across them all, as you can imagine. So I don't have any particular, sort of leaning one way or other. It's more about the leather for me, not about the handbag. it's
Right.
it's
Same for me. And when I'm looking at the
yeah.
leather the most. And for similar reasons, Bottega
Mm,
is one of my favorites. I say it so many times. Again,
mm,
I love sheepskin. I love lambskins, especially they're done with that micro semi-aniline
yeah.
type that I can see the grain, the soft touch of the lamb. And as you said, they have a certain look and style to it, like very distinct. Whenever you see a Bottega piece, you know it's Bottega.
You know it.
It's not because of the logo; it's because of the style. You know
Yes,
And
it
those
is.
are super hard to come up with in the design concept wise. They're not
Mm,
just, looking around, oh, I'm gonna make a bag look like this in the general categories. Every piece they make is very unique looking. So I have a big respect for the brand for sure.
mm.
And Hermes is another one. They still have that respectful leather feel. Every leather they use is not overly finished. They're
No.
finished to the perfect balance. It's going to be lasting a long time while looking pretty standard for a global brand. So I think those two are my favorites so far. And people buy them for very different reasons. They buy them, they love the leather, they buy them because they want the prestige comes from the brand. We need the status. We need a way to show people, show the world who we are, what we are accomplishing. And you can't just go yell around, I'm successful. This is the way you tell people, right? I can carry an Hermes bag, which tells your level in the game kind of thing. So these are all kind of needs we need these bags for. So I understand. My analysis are from only the leather and the craftsmanship standpoint, and everything else is,
And that's really where I come from as well, because it is really about the leather for me. It doesn't really matter what the leather is on. What
right,
can we do? How can we make it look better? That's my field completely.
exactly. Oh, so I love it. And now, upon this question, I just came up with something that I didn't think of before. What's the most expensive bag that came to you so far? Because I know, $400,000 could be a price for an Hermes bag at some point. What's the most, you know, highest price tag you worked on or even asked an opinion to recover?
We did a Hermes. It was a Kelly. Um, some time ago now. It actually came to us through an insurance company, and I believe the bag was worth about £50,000. And it had the tiniest scratch on it because the woman had fallen when she had her bag, and it had scratched, and it was probably one of the easiest repairs that we've ever done. It was so minor, really. And apparently she had 10 of these in different colours. So I think that's
Yeah.
probably, the most expensive that we've worked on. But that's not every
Wow.
day. It's,
Yeah, I'm sure that's not, those bags are not an everyday sale, but just like your examples, some people who owns this, they own multiples of it. I heard a story, an Hermes sales associate sold a bag for $250,000 here in Dallas, and then the person who bought it came back being not happy because it's too small, it doesn't fit her things, thinking she might return the bag. And what ended up happening is the person bought the second bigger one for another $250,000. So it's like $500,000 in two bags. So uh, I guess these things happen, and
yeah,
I'm sure when they get damaged, they're gonna call you.
yeah.
It's quite an investment. So, like every job or career, there's always these crazy stories and crazy ways things happen. And in your line of work, what's a quite memorable story that a person ruined their bag and came to you to fix it?
Well, two spring to mind. The very first bag that I restored was a Prada, a brand new Prada. The lady had bought it, taken it home, and put it on her settee at home, and her daughter had drawn a picture on it with a pen. And that was the very first bag that I restored. And very similar to that was a story which actually hit the newspapers. It was a Michael Kors bag, and the lady had bought this new bag, taken it home, and her daughter had been taught at school about writing her name on things that belonged to her. And so she'd come home from school, and instead of writing her own name, she'd copied Michael Kors underneath the logo on the bag. She'd written Michael Kors across the handbag because she thought she ought to write that it belonged to Michael Kors. And so we got that in for restoration, and that actually went out in the newspapers, that one. So that was quite a
Wow,
memorable.
those are cool stories. But I guess that might be a common lesson here. If you have a small kid who's learning to ride, just keep your
Yes.
handbags away, the expensive ones.
Yeah. The other thing that
They're
I'd
looking.
like to just add on this sort of care and repair situation, we see so many handbags that are where an attempt has been made, particularly on ink and dye transfer, where people have tried to remove it themselves by looking on the internet for information, or on forums where they ask people and people give them hacks to try and remove their ink. And we end up restoring so many bags that have been actually damaged more by trying to remove the ink. And one of you asked before about something that isn't fixable. When you've got an embossed leather where the grain pattern has been printed into the top surface, once you start scrubbing away at that, you lose the grain pattern. So it goes
Right,
flat. So once you've done that, so if you've tried to take ink off and you haven't managed to do it, but you've scrubbed at it and the grain pattern disappears, it's almost impossible to put that grain pattern back in. So you get a flat
right.
area. Whereas if they'd left it to the professionals to do, we would have removed it without flattening the grain pattern, so you wouldn't have lost that. So
Yeah,
people,
that's very important.
yeah, people do try all sorts of weird and wonderful things to remove ink from handbags. we, we, we,
There's
we,
a lot of internet tricks that may
yeah,
or may not work.
yeah, peanut butter, peanut butter hairspray, mayonnaise, all
Yeah.
sorts of things that people decide to use on their bags, which are just not appropriate.
We just did a Louis Vuitton Never Full bag. It's a white monogram Imperiante leather from LV. It has that pebble embossed on it, and
Right.
I did ink while applying some contaminants, and I'm trying to clean them up just to see how much things it will leave on it. There's no professional cleaning attempts, and I don't even know how to do those anyways. I wasn't able to remove ink, for example. The video may come out today or sometime next week. I'm not sure.
Right.
So
Mm.
there, for example, I wasn't able to remove the ink, but it seems like ink is one of the easiest ones you guys are always removing. So I would
Yeah.
definitely love to learn that. And I had a Sharpie on it too. I wasn't able to remove Sharpie. Can you remove Sharpie on?
Generally, yes, we can
Yeah.
do. Yeah, we ink and things like that are, sort of our bread and butter. Really, we can usually deal with those. But people have to remember that ink is a dye, so the longer it
Right,
stays on there and the deeper it goes into the finish. So on an aniline, say, it's not possible to remove because it has
right.
re-dyed. It re-dyes the leather
The leather.
basically, like it does on paper. When
Right.
you write on paper, it re-dyes the paper, and that's the same on
Right.
an aniline. But once you put a finish on there, then we can remove ink from that, and
So
then
I'm sure when you watch my video this week or next week, whenever the LV never full, and it's a pretty light color, like cream, almost white color
right,
bag.
yeah,
You might be laughing my attempts of trying to
I'll
remove
comment.
the ink and the Sharpie. Yeah, you can comment. And so it definitely didn't come off, but the other
Mm.
ones, and it was a quite heavily finished leather. I was thinking I should be able to remove most of it, but I wasn't. So that's where the expertise come in.
The ink goes into the finish, so the more finish that is on there, actually, the deeper it goes in, and then you have to sort of soften the finish to get the ink back out again. So
Oh,
that's
okay.
one
So there's, a slower, more
reason
like,
behind it. Yeah,
yeah, methodology. So that's why I want to learn, go to your course. So what do you think about vegan leather and other leather alternatives?
how long have you got?
Uh,
Vegan leather, there is no such thing. I mean, it's a complete oxymoron. You can't have vegan leather. It doesn't exist. Leather comes from an animal, and the vegans are using it. And I can't understand why they're using it, because why they would use a term that is so linked to an industry that they detest so
to deceive
much.
people.
It's very weird. Well, yes, to deceive people quite. Um, and it really is. They're not going to be repairable. It is just another form of plastic for mostly, and I just think I don't like to see the term used, and I know that there are many countries where the term is banned if it's not linked to something that is actually leather, and I just wish the UK would hurry up and catch up with that, because I think it is very confusing for people.
It is
They don't.
confusing. I think Italy has that law that if it's not coming
Yeah,
from an animal, you cannot say leather.
yeah,
Well, obviously, Italy is big on their leather, they want to protect it. But I
yeah,
believe there's efforts to remove these like mind-boggling concepts to protect people. I've seen people when they didn't know vegan leather wasn't leather. They were like, "Oh,
yeah.
well, why it says leather then?" Well, I don't know. They're trying to make you think this way. That's why.
Mm.
So,
I
yeah,
think
we'll see. And
I think I think faux leather we all understand. I think faux leather has been around a long time, and I
yeah,
think if people stuck to that, it would be much better. But it is obviously just an attempt to try and persuade people that it is it is as good as, or a good alternative, which it isn't, because nothing can ever compare to a piece of leather.
exactly.
There's,
There is so
there's,
many research done, especially one with an institution called Filk. They make a lot of material researches. They compared leather to all these alternatives, the plastic-based and even the bio-based ones coming from plants. Nothing was comparable in the overall characteristics of leather specialties. Some items might be superior in one certain aspect, easy to clean or waterproofness or something
yeah,
like that, like engineered that way. But once you take the overall scheme of qualities leather offer, nothing comes even close to the original material. And there is a second aspect of this vegan thing now. It's more of a greenwashing story, where was a plastic was promoted as faux leather or PU leather in the past. Now they start saying it vegan leather because of the trends, and unfortunately, it just misrepresents even the vegan spirit. Like people who don't want to use animal products, I have respect for them, but I don't
yeah,
believe they want to use oil-based products that's going to go to landfill and even become a further problem for the planet as well. So
I agree.
it's a huge
Yeah,
issue. We're trying to
it
make a
is.
lot of videos to raise awareness around the subject, but the other side is too big. They're working too hard and too loud. So
Yeah. I mean, there's some interesting developments in tanning processes, isn't there? Have you seen the rhubarb leather that they're producing from
no.
tanning? Yeah, I got some samples not so long ago. It's beautiful.
What is it out of?
I'll send you the link to rhubarb. They're
Oh
using
yeah.
rhubarb as a tanning agent and producing
Oh no,
some
I didn't see it.
really
Yeah.
lovely leather. Yeah,
I'll be interested. Yeah, there is a lot of new tannings for biodegradable, improve the biodegradability of leather
yeah,
using elements from the earth crust itself. They call it
yeah,
zeolite. Basically, leather goes back, disintegrates itself in 45 days in the right composting environment. So um, there are like incredible, like innovative work being done in the tanning side of things to
there
make
is.
the tanning process more environmental friendly too.
Yeah,
So I love learning and reading about those stuff. So please send me the link.
I will. I will.
All right. Awesome. Well, this was so much fun. I asked all the questions I had in mind. Where can people find your work, your products, your services? You have trainings, you have products that you sell, and you have services of cleaning. So where do they go? for each?
We do. Our training courses are available on our LTT Leathercare site, which is lttleathercare.co.uk. So that's the site that has all the training information on. And the handbag care products are all on thehandbagspa.com. So we have a full range because we do a full range of products for trade and for consumers. So all repair products and everything we produce ourselves. So we have a full range of products as well to back up the training.
Okay, awesome. Well, thank you for being here and sharing your expertise, which is very
Welcome.
specific here with our audience.
It's
And
been
I will refer to you with any questions I get in this space from now on. And hoping to make it there and learn from you at some point how to clean and restore some of these things that I'm struggling these days.
that'd be great.